Hey guys, it's Tracy. Welcome to today's video. It is jam-packed with some fall goodness, guys. I am kicking it off with another collection video, and it's all about the pumpkins. All right, I will have the timestamps listed in the description box below, as well as other pertinent information. I'm so glad you're here, and let's get started. One of my favorite things to do is take already cute signs from, say, the Dollar Tree and enhance them a bit more to my liking, using my special touches with my black Sharpie markers as well as some white paint. Now, my favorite black Sharpie markers are the ultra fine Sharpie marker as well as the fine point, and I like to use white paint and a liner brush. I just go around some of it, giving it a little bit of the details and just some little squiggles, and I will also add some black paint splatter as well as a white paint splatter just to give it a country look, because that is the look that I like. Of course, this is just inspiration and I am just here to inspire you. You can add to or leave out anything that you would like. Sign is all dry. I do give a coat of this varnish. This is my favorite varnish. I have been getting some questions about that. Yes, I do seal all of my painted projects, and this is the varnish that I have been using for years. So I needed something cute for my pumpkins to go on. So I had this base that I had done a couple of months ago that I never did anything with. And what I did is I took two of the 21-inch candy canes that Dollar Tree used to have, and I just turned them around just to make a oval. And I had seen this in the Facebook wreath groups, and I thought it is so cute because you can make swags out of them. Anyway, so what I did is I just put on my mesh like I usually do in the bundles with the burlap and the snowball mesh, and I cut my mesh at 12 inches, and I just put them on this this candy cane oval frame, and just with my pipe cleaners, and I put 25 bundles on this on this oval, 25 bundles, and then I went back with the orange and the white 12-inch mesh, and I put 11 bundles to go around this. And then I am going to put on some cute fall ribbon. Again, I used 25 of the burlap bundles and 11 of the orange and white bundles. I connected my candy cane frames just with black zip ties. Now we're going to move on to the cute fall ribbon. I cut these at 13 inches. They all came from Hobby Lobby. And then I layered them like this. I use my tiny attacher because it puts a tiny staple in there. But if you want to do it like this and use a regular staple, go right ahead. I just gather it in the middle, and I don't even know that staple is there, so that's why I advocate for the little tiny attacher. These are my next bundle of ribbon that I'm using. They're all cut at 13 inches as well, and so then I just make an X pattern, and then I just put one on top. These right here, the flat ones are cut at 13 inches, and then I made some bows. Those bows are cut at 28 inches, and then I just made like 3-inch loops and stapled it in the middle. And I'm just going to put the pumpkin burlap and the plaid in an X pattern, and then I will put the bow in the middle. I'm also using some raffia in this wreath, and so I just did like just a loop of it, and then I just took extra pipe cleaner and just tied that off, and then that is what I'm going to put into all of the orange with the burlap. I'm going to put those in all of the ties. And so then I just did a tic-tac-toe pattern. I have 3 sets of ribbons. So I just went around this whole wreath and, just kind of alternated them, to make them look really pretty. And just by, putting in a bit of raffia in one of those sets of ribbons, out of the 3, I only put the raffia in the one, and it just looks really pretty. Now this sign is a cardboard sign. So I just used my crocodile to put some holes in it and just use some of my wire that I like to get from the Dollar Tree to secure it and attach it to the frame so that everything is nice and secure. I also added in some sprigs of the pip berries that I like to get from Hobby Lobby, and this fall swag wreath is complete. Okay guys, this was a fun project to do. I love doing reverse canvas projects. I have quite a few of them because I have them left over from years of doing craft shows. I did personalized signs and that kind of thing. Maybe you've heard me mention that. Why I do a lot of reverse canvas projects. I also like to turn them into, they almost remind me of shadow boxes. So this one right here is a 12 by 14 and I've already painted it just in a brown acrylic paint. And then first I'm going to hand letter the sign. Now this sign right here is from Hobby Lobby. It comes in a little pack from the wood pile, like usually in their unfinished wood section. I'm using the Posca paint marker. This is the larger one. I got these from Amazon and I'm just hand lettering thankful and blessed. And then I'm just going to start assembling my reverse canvas project just to make it look really cute for the fall season. So for the background, I have this wood grain looking scrapbook paper that I've cut down to size. These were originally 12 by 12 inch sheets from Hobby Lobby, and then I'm gonna cut them down and then just place them in there so that they line up. It really didn't matter in the end because it was all covered up anyway, but it just made me feel better when I was doing this. Okay, so let me tell you how I do my frames if you're not familiar with it. These large craft sticks are from Walmart. That's the only place that I can find them right now, as at Walmart in the unfinished wood section. If you know of a different place, please drop it in the comments and let us know. And so what I do is I cut them down and I just kind of measure them out to where they're not all the same. This is a very rustic, very country project, and so I want it to be different sizes and different lengths. So I cut these down with my scissors, and then to give them some color, what I did is I used my antique wax. This is by Waverly. I get also at a Walmart, and then I just stained them, and that gave me the color that I wanted for my frame. And my favorite way to get that stain on those sticks is just using a baby wipe. And I just kind of smooth that on there. I guess the wetness of the baby wipe kind of smooths that around and it gives me the look that I want. And I just love this so far. So now I'm going to work on my pumpkin. Now this wood pumpkin is from the Dollar Tree, and then this orange and white check paper is out of the stack from Hobby Lobby. Now I was fortunate to find that stack of paper for when they had their 75% off sale, but maybe you can find something similar if you like this look. So I just traced out the pumpkin, then cut it out with my scissors. I'm going to, adhere it to this wood pumpkin, just using some Elmer's glue. And, sometimes I think we forget about Elmer's glue, that it works really good. And so I'm just going to put that on there. Now I left the stem because I'm going to be adding some burlap to that and be dressing that up and making that look really cute. So I'm just smoothing that out just with a squeegee, and then I'll use my sanding sponge to get off any of the extra paper. Then now the fun part for me is I'm just going to add some of the distress ink. I go around it. I have that little thing in my finger is called a finger dauber. You can get those at the craft store, anywhere like scrapbook scrapbook paper and that kind of thing are sold. So I just give it just some color. Then now I'm going to add a little bit of doodling with my black Sharpie marker and just give it the look that I want, just giving it some squiggles all the way around the pumpkin. Okay, so then here I just have some burlap from the Dollar Tree and just going to attach that around the stem of the pumpkin. That pink thing right there is a mask tool that I also got from the Dollar Tree. You can find those in the makeup section. And so then here is I'm going to enhance my thankful and blessed sign just using another one of those Posca pens. This one looks to be in an off-white color. I can get those at Amazon. Those are listed in my Amazon shop. I go back and add a little bit of extra doodling around the letters of that thankful and blessed sign. So then for my pumpkin and all of that good stuff, I want to add some paint splatter. So I pull out my black paint and a stiff brush and a stick. That is how I paint splatter. I make sure that my table is covered because paint splattering is messy. So I'm going to enhance the frame a bit with my finger dauber and that distress ink. This is in Vintage Photo. That is my favorite. Just kind of gives a little bit of definition to the frame. Then now I'm going to start assembling my decor piece together. So I have some of this fine Excelsior. Now this right here came from Joann's craft store, but I have also found it at Hobby Lobby in the card section, like the fine Excelsior. So then I just start figuring out how I want my pumpkin to lay, and I'm just kind of making it look like a decor piece. So I just put my sign, I put the Excelsior, I decorate it with flowers and greenery, pip berries, a cute bow, and all of that fun stuff, and it's just perfect for the season. So around the pumpkin stem, I tie some raffia, just strips of that. And then this right here is kind of making it look like pumpkin tendrils. This right here is from a garland that I took those pip berries off of that I get from Hobby Lobby. And so I just kind of twisted it around the stem of the pumpkin, curled it up so it looks like pumpkin tendrils, and then I just attach my bow there to that as well, and it just looks so cute. These DIY rustic pumpkins decor are definitely a favorite. So many friends have made these over the years. They have shared pictures with me. They have told me how much they are inspired, and it just really makes me happy and warms my heart when I can inspire others. Now, I will have the my inspiration as well as the link to the original video in the description box below. So guys, these pumpkins all came from the Dollar Tree. A couple of them are on the stands, as well as a few other ones that I've had. Now, if you do not have these and want to use them, just use whatever Dollar Tree has or whatever you can find. The scrapbook paper came from Hobby Lobby. So the pumpkins on the stand, a Dollar Tree usually has these or something similar every season. So what I did is I took them off of the stand, as well as removed any of the raffia, as well as that small sunflower. And then for these pumpkins, I don't think Dollar Tree has these anymore, but you can always find something similar. And so then what I did is, for the scrapbook paper, I just traced it out like I usually do. And then I'm just going to Mod Podge that on to the pumpkin so that everything sticks on there. Now these were made before I knew about the heat transfer method. Crafts are always evolving. There's always different tips and tricks that we pick up along the way. And so then once these are all dried, then I'm going to go ahead and start assembling them together and just make them look really cute. So I sand off any of the extra paper just with that sanding sponge. I got that from Walmart many years ago. I'm using just some brown ink just to go around the edges, just to give it some definition. Then I'm going to start adding some burlap leaves to the tops of my pumpkins for the stem. So these leaves came out of a pack from the Dollar Tree. I just cut off pieces of that just to give it the look of a stem. You can get these at the Dollar Tree usually. Every year they have them, or maybe another craft store might have them as well. And so I just use my finger protectors just so that, because the burlap the hot glue can seep through there. So I use my black marker just to give it some doodles, just to enhance it a bit more. Now, guys, I love to put these collection videos together because I am always getting new viewers, new watchers, new friends. Thank you so much. I'm so blessed and honored that you are here. Again, I will have the original video linked in the description box if you like a slower video, where it's not so fast. All right, so then I'm using this DAP glue. It's like a super glue. I have it linked in my Amazon shop as well. And so what I'm going to do is just add that to the one with the stand, just so to make it look where it stands up. And then for the pumpkin tendrils, what I was using is just grapevine floral wire. That is what I just wrapped around a dowel just to make it look, curly for the pumpkin tendrils. So then now what I'm doing is adding a bow. I do have a tutorial on how I made those bows. I just added some, orange leaves to it. And so this one right here, guys, this one looks perfect. And so, I'm going to show you next when I decided to, add the pumpkin to this one. It was lopsided. Oh my goodness. I was like, what in the world are you thinking? And guys, I share my kind of reaction in the original video. Again, it's in the description box. But guys, what I did, I'm so glad that I did that, because it turned into another, decor, because I added one more pumpkin, added it on the other side, added, cute scrapbook paper to it, and it turned out even better. So I have an option that you can have the 2 pumpkins, or you can have the trio pumpkins. And so many friends were just so, appreciative of my mistake, because they have just made so many of these pumpkin trios. That's how creations are made when through our accidents, through our mess ups, through our, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? And so that's how this, came about. Is I had messed up, had got my 2 pumpkins off center. And so I had to add a 3rd pumpkin. It turned out beautifully. And so I did that again. I just, added more burlap for the stem, some, orange and brown leaves, and then another one of those cute funky bows that I like to make. Added some raffia, and I just absolutely love the way that this pumpkin trio turned out. So what I did is down at the bottom, I added some Spanish moss, just glued that there at the bottom. I also added some of these fun flowers from the Dollar Tree. Usually they have these every year. I just kind of put that in there like that and just make it look really fun and festive. I also added some pip berries. I love, love, love pip berries. I really think that it just really adds a lot of country rustic touches to my projects, and just love adding those berries right there to the bottom of this pumpkin trio. This pumpkin trio it was so fun to create, and I pull it out every single year and use it. It is just super easy and just so versatile. Now, these pumpkin boxes came from the Dollar Tree. I'm using 3 of them. I gave them a coat of this Canyon Orange acrylic paint. I painted both sides, inside and outside, because I'm going to make this, reversible so that you can see it from both sides. So then once I finish painting that, then I'm going to add some shading and do the details. That's what I always say, guys. The beauty is in the details, and especially for me, I love to shade my projects with my flat paintbrush. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel. Then I go around the edges just to give it some shading, and then it just really adds some depth and definition, especially for my painted projects. And then I will add some squiggles. I really, like I say, the beauty is in the details. I say that all of the time, because when you just add and highlight and add some paint splatters, when you add some squiggles like this, it just really, really makes your painted project pop. And so I just use my little tiny kind of liner brush. This one has been with me for a few years, but I have shared just an idea with friends that want to do that. If you don't have one, get a liner brush and pull out some of the bristles, because that little liner brush has been with me for a long time. I add some paint splatters just with my stiff brush and a stick. I add black first, then I go back over it with some off-white or some, antique white. And then once all of my paint is dry, then I will take my fine Sharpie marker just to give it a little bit of definition and more doodling. Then once all of that is dry, then I give it a coat of just sealer, my favorite sealer, which is the Delta Ceram Coat Sealer that is listed in my Amazon shop. Most of my favorite products are listed in my Amazon shop. Okay, so then now I'm going to, start adding some of the embellishments to my pumpkins. I'm adding some of that burlap. I love it. It looks all frayed and everything. What I'm showing you here, this is a little mask tool, and also some pink fingertips that you can get from the Dollar Tree. That just helps prevent our fingers from getting burned from the hot glue. So I just cut off the burlap, twist that around the stem, and make the stems look really cute and rustic and very country. I just kind of slipped the pumpkins together where they kind of, if like they fit like a puzzle. That's just what I was just kind of thinking when I was doing it. And then I just hot glued those down so that they would all stay together. And then I'm going to use this pitberry garland. This is from the Dollar Tree, just oh so cute and speaks to my heart. And so I'm just cutting off pieces of that, just twisting it around my finger and just adding it to the pumpkin to kind of simulate some tendrils for each of the pumpkins. This next part is totally optional. Honestly, if I had this to do over again, I would leave these off because a lot of friends have remade this and they didn't add it, and it just looks really cute. But I had these Hello Autumn blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I just wanted to use them and add a sign to my trios. So what I did is I just cut them all apart. Actually, I should have used my box blade. That would have cut a little bit better. And then what I did is I kind of, added some distressing to it, some, paint splatters just to make it a bit more rustic and, just make a little, really country cute. So a country or rustic project wouldn't be complete without some Excelsior. I love the fine one that I can get at different craft stores. I just kind of put that in there. And then I have all of these fun florals that I got from either Hobby Lobby or the Dollar Tree. Just kind of stick those in there. And this is so cute. It is, two-sided, so you can see it all on both sides. As I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, a lot of friends have made these over the years. They didn't put the signs on. Some of them did, and they look just fine. But it's just really cute that you can create these for your table or just to sit around and just to have it for some fall decor. Next is my primitive country rustic pumpkins. I am so in love with these. My husband had just some scrap wood, like 2x4s, 2x6s, that kind of thing. And what I did is I'm like, oh, I can make some pumpkins out of those. So I was inspired by this pin that I found on Pinterest, and I will have that linked below to give credit to where I found the inspiration. So guys, what I did is I gave it some coverage. Just the paint I used is the pumpkin paint. That is a Waverly brand, and that is what I did, and I gave it so that it was covered pretty good. Then I took a heavy grit sandpaper. I'm sorry, I don't remember what exactly grit this is, but it's pretty heavy, pretty coarse. So I just ripped off pieces of that, and then I went on the edges just to expose a bit of the edge. Then also I went over the entire pumpkin just to give it some, distressing a bit. Then I'm going to add some more distressing, the brown of it. I'm just using the antique wax and my stencil brush just to go around each one of those just to give it the, color of the pumpkin. So this all grungy looking and, so cute where it looks like it just came out of the pumpkin patch. So here I'll show you. These have the antique wax on them and these do not. So it really just depends on what look you like, but I love the rustic grunge to it. All right, so then I wanted to add a few more details, just adding some white puffy paint to it. I just love the little, just the little squiggle like this. And wouldn't these look cute as a gingerbread too? I thought about that as I was doing it. I'm like, oh, I need to make some gingerbread because because that would look really cute on that. So I just add some of that, let this white puffy paint dry completely, and then I'm going to add more details with my black Sharpie marker. This is the ultra fine, no, this is the fine Sharpie marker. I just add some doodling around. Then I kind of add some, like where some of the creases would be for the pumpkins. And then I add some paint splatter with black and white just to give it the whole primitive country rustic look. For the tops of my pumpkins, I used old wine corks as well as some spools. These wooden spools I get from the craft store. I just gave them a coat of brown paint just so that they would look nice, and just glued them to the top of my wood pumpkins. For my pumpkin toppers, I love the primitive country look of all this goodness right here. I have some homespun fabric as well as muslin. I have some burlap, some pit berries, some raffia, and just some paper covered stems. It's paper covered wire that I got at Walmart in the craft section, and I just wrap those around a dowel just to give it some curly cues. And also I got some pit berries. There's that paper stem wire, like I said, that I got from Walmart. And so what I did is I just ripped strips of fabric. I cut the burlap in half just to make it a little bit more manageable, make it a little more rustic. Just kind of put everything together, just tied everything up. Now, if you think this is too much, do less is more, or whatever you would like. That is totally optional. Everyone has their own liking, but I absolutely love the way that these turned out. And that's what I did with that stem wire, or that paper covered wire. I just wrapped it around a dowel just to give it the curly cues, and then just glued it there to the top of my pumpkin, and then just start assembling them the way that I like it. Now, this is just my style, my version of how I do things, but you can take it and make it your own. Okay, so now we're going to paint up this cute little welcome to our patch sign. So let's get started on painting the sign. For the sign, I'm using one of these thankful little signs from Dollar Tree, and my white Waverly chalk paint. I just paint the top of the sign with 3 coats of the Waverly chalk paint. Then now I'm using my antique white color Americana paint and my fan brush. I will have a link to the brushes that I like to use for my painting projects linked below in the description. I just take a part of the brush and I just make some little stripes on my sign because I just like the look that it gives. Just using some black paint and my number 2 flat paintbrush, I'm going to hand letter here, paint with the paintbrush. Now, it has taken me many, many years to learn how to paint with the paintbrush. I say that humbly, but I owe all of the glory to God because He has allowed me to do all of this crafting stuff and, you know, just pursue the desires of my heart because I totally love all of this painting stuff. And so without Him, I would not be able to do this. So all the glory to Him. Anyway, so I am just painting up here. Welcome to our patch. And I just like to add just little dots on the end. And I use the end of a paintbrush to do that. It's like, I have so many, my paintbrushes are so worn and so loved because I have used them so many years. And I just figure out what size I want and what size works for me. If something like this, if I mess up, I just paint over it and then start over. I know it takes extra time, but I have had many trial and error projects over the years that I'm like, oh my goodness, I do not like the way that that looks, and I just start over. So anyway, paint is really good for that. Now I'm going to do some shading around the edges. I should have done this before I started my welcome to the patch, but I got a little ahead of myself. But I just dip part of my brush into paint and then the other part in water, and then shade along the edges of my project. Then now I'm just taking my fine Sharpie marker, just going around, just adding some doodles because that's what I like to do for my projects. And then I'm taking some black paint to splatter on the project. And then also I top that with some white splatters. Okay, I have 3 splatter screens with the handles, and I just took them outside and gave each side a coat of orange spray paint and let that dry completely. Then now I'm going to add some rope to the edges, and what I just want to point out here is this happens to be a rope that has 13 feet, but the Dollar Tree is now carrying the little nautical rope for 9.5 feet, so just beware for that. And then what I'm going to do now is just add rope to my splatter screens, and so I want to make sure that I have it correct. So I want to have one of the screens have the handle at the top and the other 2 down, because I want to bend those handles at the bottom to make my pumpkin stand up. So I just want to be mindful when I'm gluing my rope how I want to glue it. The little pink finger caps are Mod Podge finger caps. You can get them in the craft store, or I will have a link in the description below. I do get asked about these quite a bit. I use them all of the time because it helps with burned fingers. You know, that is so heartbreaking when we're doing a project and we burn our fingers, so it really kind of helps protect our fingers from the hot glue as much as it can. I use them all of the time. Anyway, I will have a link below, or you can find them in the craft store next to the glue section. I want to stop the rope where my middle screen is going to attach, and I had put just a little tick mark from my black Sharpie marker. I apologize I didn't get that filmed, but I'm just going to be doing half of this screen. It will butt up against the middle part of my pumpkin. Okay, once my splatter screens are completely dry with the paint, now it's kind of like a little puzzle piece, kind of putting it together. I want to make sure that those handles are at the bottom because I'm going to bend those handles at the end to make my pumpkin stand up. And then the center one, it has the handle at the top. So I'm just kind of positioning them here to figure out where I need to put my wire. So I have this black wire. This is my favorite wire at the moment. I get this in the automotive section at the Dollar Tree, and so I'm going to use this to attach my pumpkins together. I just am putting a little piece of wire to attach the two screens together. I make sure that I have them the same way where my little lines will meet up, and then the middle pumpkin will meet up with the little lines as well. So sometimes I just was going back and forth just to make sure that I was, lining everything up correctly. And then for the center screen, I wanted it to be just a tad lower than the two side screens because, to give it more of a pumpkin realistic look to it. So that's why I have the little middle pumpkin just maybe half an inch a little bit lower. And then I just took some wire and I just attached it in the corners. If I don't have a problem with wire showing, I'll curl it. It just doesn't bother me on my projects. But if you want to cover it up, you can put some felt or you can put some sort of covering over it. I didn't do anything because I wanted, I didn't want it to be seen through my screens, but you can definitely do that. Now I'm going to work on my handle, and I wanted it to be curved a little bit, and I got this tip from one of my members over in the Country Charm community. She made one of these pumpkins and shared it in the group, and she told me how she did it. She just bent it over, and so then now I have just some twine. Now I got this twine at Hobby Lobby. You can get this big old bundle like this from Walmart has it as well, but I like this. It's a little bit thicker than the twine from the Dollar Tree, so that's why I'm using it. And I'm just going to wrap it around this handle. The jute was a bit tricky when I got to the end, so I just kind of kept wrapping it on itself, hot gluing it, put lots of hot glue on there. That's where those pink fingertips really come in handy, so that I didn't hot glue my fingers because that doesn't feel very good. Anyway, I just kept twirling it on top of each other. Now the fun part begins. I get to decorate the top, and so I have these little off-white or cream colored flowers. They're little glitzy wildflowers that I got from the Dollar Tree. So I'm just going to kind of make a spray on the top of the pumpkin and attach that to the top of that little pumpkin. The orange picks are pip berries from Hobby Lobby, my favorite store, and also my favorite little berry are these little pip berries. I got those on clearance last year, so now I'm excited to be able to use them in this little project. I've decided to pull out a bunch of the little leaves. I got these from the Dollar Tree a couple of years ago. Doesn't seem like the leaves from the Dollar Tree now are quite as full as these, so it pays to kind of, keep things from year to year. And what I did is I bent half of it one way and the other half the other way, and then so that it will go on this spray. And then now I'm just taking some wire and I'm just going to wire all of these together. I'm not going to attach it to the pumpkin yet. I just want to just have this spray together just by putting some wire. To insert my little curly cues, I just stuck them through the wire and then just kind of spread those out. And then I attach my swag to my pumpkin using an extra piece of wire. And then now I have this 10-inch poly jute mesh. I'm cutting it to 12-inch strips. And then to attach all of my ribbon and my bow to my pumpkin, I'm gonna use this chenille stem, and I didn't have very much trouble at all just sticking it through the back. And then I'm just gonna twist that, just kind of layer my ribbon on there. Now I have my mesh and I'm just kind of holding it in my hand and just kind of doing a ruffle technique, just kind of bending the ends over on itself. And then now I'm just gonna put that layer on there and get ready for my ribbon. Okay guys, these are definitely a fan favorite, my primitive country pumpkin bowl fillers. Let me share how I do mine and maybe you'll pick up a tip or two. Okay, here are the supplies I used: some burlap, some homespun fabric, some cinnamon sticks, Mod Podge, some black as well as some white paint, some stuffing, and some sisal twine. Okay, this is a great project to use up some of your scraps. I just had this piece of 6-inch burlap left from a recent project. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a coat of Mod Podge on the burlap because the burlap is flimsy and I want it to be a little formed and have just a little stability to it. So this Mod Podge gives it some stability. So then once I put this layer of Mod Podge on, I just put it to the side and let it dry. Okay, to make the pumpkin, I am just going to kind of eyeball it and just kind of make a pumpkin. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can make something like a pattern out of cardstock, or you can print something off online for a pattern that you like. But pumpkins come in all different shapes and sizes, so this is great to use up your scraps and just kind of not stress over it and just, you know, let your scissors do the work. Anyway, so I'm just, you know, evening up everything, and then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut off around, just round the edges and just make a pumpkin. Okay, now to make the pumpkin, I just have my hot glue gun and I just have these little hot glue fingers because when I'm working with burlap like this, it kind of seeps through the fabric. Even though we put some Mod Podge on it, it still kind of seeps through. So I want to protect my fingers and not get burned. So I'm just gluing each side and just closing that up. I left a hole at the top because that is where I'm going to insert the stuffing. Now I am going to paint my pumpkins. I just have a flat paintbrush that I dip half of the brush in black paint, the other half in water, and then I blend it on that paper towel. And then I just run it over the edges, and then I just give it some little lines like for the ridges of the pumpkin, flip it over, and then do the other side. Now, then I go on to insert the filling or the stuffing in the pumpkin, but honestly, I really should have splattered it because I like the splattered country look. You know, I had a comment one time that a lady left me and said that, you know, doesn't look good. You know, to each its own, but I like that look on my projects, and so I'm going to do them on my projects. So what I'm doing here is I am inserting the cinnamon stick and using my little hot glue fingers so that my fingers don't get burned. I just kind of hold all that together, and then I'm going to put the homespun ribbon on. I just tear this homespun ribbon, fabric rather. Homespun is, you can see it on both sides, and I like that it's really popular in the country decorating country world. And so I'm just inserting, just tying little bows right here, and then I use my pinking shears to cut off like the edges, and then I just have the sisal twine, and then I'm going to make a bow. But once I get to this point, then I'm like, something's missing. They don't look right. And so then I look at one that I've already done and I'm like, I'm missing the splattering. And so I just have an old stencil brush here, and I take a toothpick and I just run it across and make some little splatters. Definitely Be Still My Heart. These are burlap pumpkin bowl fillers are definitely a favorite. And so I want to share now how I created some buffalo check pumpkins using some white burlap. So that's what I'm going to share here. It looks great in a small bowl like this, or a dough tray, or a bucket, or just a box, anything that you can find to display your pumpkins are just really cute. So let me share how I created and painted up these. Supplies that I used is this white burlap, and they are cut at 6-inch strips, and those strips itself are about 48 inches long, and then as well as some Mod Podge. Then for the fabric, for the little bow ties, I'm going to use some homespun fabric, and then that darker muslin fabric. For the stuffing, I'm using this filling stuffing, some cinnamon sticks for the stem, and then some orange burlap 1-inch ribbon that I had in my stash. So for the burlap, I just spread that out and I put a layer of Mod Podge on there and then let that dry, because that gives my pumpkin some stiffness and stability while I'm working and creating the little pumpkin. To make the pumpkin, I just cut out strips like this, and if you fold it over, it gives you a crease at the bottom, which is great for my pumpkin. And then I'm just going to take my scissors, and then I'm just going to fussy cut it around like a pumpkin shape. If it doesn't need to be perfect. Pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes. They're, you know, slanted on one side, smushed in, and so I wouldn't stress about this too much, but if you want a pattern, you can Google it or get free patterns online. Since the bottom has the crease, I just need to glue in the sides. So I'm just using my hot glue gun, and then those pink fingertips are Mod Podge fingertips. I will have a link in the description below. I get a lot of questions about those. You can find them in the craft store. You can also find them on Amazon. If you want to check out what they look like, I'll leave a link in the description below. But they have been a lifesaver for this crafty girl, let me tell you. I just glue the sides, leaving an opening at the top so I can put in my stuffing and my stem. So I'm just taking a 1-inch paintbrush and I'm just going to make vertical stripes down. I decided to do this pattern. I'm using this gray paint, a lighter gray. It's not a light gray and it's not a dark gray. I just like this. It was in my stash. It's by Delta Ceramicoat. And I'm just taking my gray paint and I'm just making vertical stripes, just eyeballing it. I did not tape this off because I think that the hand painting makes it so unique. For the vertical stripes, I'm using this chalk paint by Waverly. I get this at Walmart. It's the color Elephant. So I'm just taking my 1-inch brush and just going across horizontal, and then I just kind of eyeball that again and make some more stripes. I did let the bottom coat dry pretty good before I did my second layer, which is this elephant paint. And otherwise, if it's wet, it'll smear and then you'll wind up painting over it. Then, so I have a little bit of control of where I put my black. I'm using a 1/2-inch paintbrush, and I'm just going to color in all of the squares where the lighter and the darker gray paint meet. Once my pumpkin is completely dry, I am going to add some shading around the pumpkin, outside of the pumpkin. So I just have some black paint. I dip half of my brush in paint, half in clean water, and then I have a paper towel that I put that to the side and I blend on that. And then I just run it across my pumpkin or my project and just gives it a little bit of dimension. And then I also am giving some little ripples of the pumpkin. Then the next step, once that's dry, I am taking some white paint, and then I also have some water that I am watering it down, because when I'm working with thin, I want to make some thin little lines, and so then that gives me a very like ink consistency. Of course, you know, I have done it in the past where I've put too much water and had to start over. But, you know, the more you do this, the more you find little tricks and things that work for you. Now I'm just adding some splattering. I've already splattered the black paint. I always do the black and then I do the white paint on top of it. I had done the black and I went, oh my goodness, I forgot to film it. So I'm just showing you here how I splattered the white paint. To stuff the pumpkin, I just have my stuffing and I stuff it through the top of the pumpkin, and I'm going to use a dowel rod, just kind of push that stuffing in there, and I can kind of push it to the side where it may be a little flat. And then using some hot glue, I just glue that opening shut. I stick my cinnamon stick in there for the stem. The muslin fabric and the homespun fabric I cut at 1-inch strips. I love to use my pinking shears for that. The orange burlap I cut at 9 inches. Now these may be a tad long, but it gives me some leverage so that I can tie the bow around that cinnamon stick, and then I will trim off any of the excess with my pinking shears. To make the bow, I have the 2 strips of homespun fabric, and then this burlap, I can't tie it in a bow very well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrunch that in the middle, and I'm going to use my little tiny attacher, little mini stapler. I love this. This is one of my favorite crafting tools, and I'm going to staple that because it's going to hold that in the middle and give me, you know, something to crease to. So the homespun fabric and the muslin fabric, then I will just slip that through. I'm going to show you here how I created a little opening, and when I tied it around that cinnamon stick so that I could get my burlap fabric in there as well. And I just kind of play with it, just kind of twisting that fabric and that ribbon, and then using my pinking shears, I just trim off any of the anything that's too long. Use my hot glue to glue everything together, and my little pumpkins are done. Here are the supplies that I use: some foam pumpkins, some chalk paint, some buffalo check ribbon, some black jute for the stem, some leaves, some Mod Podge, and then I also used a dowel to create my little curlicues for my pumpkins. I'm also showing you this gingham buffalo check ribbon here because this is what I used on one of my pumpkins. I start by removing the stems of my pumpkin and then give each pumpkin 2 coats of chalk paint. That way you don't see any of the orange through the ribbon. And just a little tip, I used a wooden skewer, and I have another little piece of a styrofoam that I use for projects like this. If you stick the skewer through the bottom of the pumpkin, and then you can let it dry. To let my little curlicues set up, I'm just twisting them around, giving it a coat of Mod Podge on this little dowel. Then once I'm ready to do my stem, I just have this extra piece of paper, and I am just gluing that around there, and I'm going, because I want my stem to be just a little bit thicker. I would have used something different if I was thinking like a wine cork or something like that. I didn't have any of those. So I'm just kind of, you know, this is what I did with the other ones, and it worked well. And so I'm just wrapping this black jute around the paper and hot gluing it all the way around. Now I'm just figuring out how long I want to cut my ribbon. I just want it to go around my pumpkin, and then I just cut that and hold it up to the spool, and then I'll just trim that off like that. Now for the 3 pumpkins, I used 3 different patterns of buffalo check. 2 of them were 1.5 inch, and then the larger one was 2.5 inch. I like the smaller buffalo check I found by doing this project, but you can use whatever ribbon you want. So for the 1.5 inch, I used 16 pieces of ribbon, and for the 2.5 inch, the larger buffalo check, I used 8 pieces of ribbon. To attach the ribbon, I'm going in like a counterclockwise motion, and for that first piece of ribbon, I'm just tacking it down just a bit. I want to, once I get all the way around on the other side, as I glue my ribbon, I'm going to want to be able to pick up that first piece and layer the last piece underneath it, and it'll make more sense as we get to it. But I'm just continuing to glue the ribbon and just kind of pleating it at the top and then also at the bottom. That way it kind of lays really nicely, and it also sits nicely at the bottom. I'm going to put a piece of felt at the bottom, so I'm not really worried about if my ribbon is too long or not long enough rather, and if any of the little white of the pumpkin is showing. It's underneath it, so I'm not really going to worry about that. So I'm just showing you here, I'm just continuing to glue the ribbon on the pumpkin, and then as I get to this last little part, this is a little more tricky. I wanted that first piece to overlap the last piece, so I am just fiddling with that here, just trying to figure out how that is going to fit in there and look the way that I want it to look. I painted some leaves for my pumpkin. The black I did 2 coats of chalk paint, and the white I did 3 coats of chalk paint. Now to finish off my pumpkin, I have a piece of felt I'm just gluing to the bottom because the ribbon is wired, and so sometimes when you have those little end cuts, they're kind of pokey. So I just added a piece of felt to the bottom. And for my stem, what I did, once I hot glued the jute all the way around my stem, it kind of leaves like some film or something on it, and you know, I didn't like that from the hot glue. And so I just took some black paint and just painted over it, and it is all cool. Everything's good. So then now I'm just gluing my pumpkins to my leaves to my pumpkin, and then I had already attached my little curly cues to my pumpkin, and I think they just turned out perfect. Then I just hot glue the stem to the pumpkin, and it just looks really pretty. I love the way that these pumpkins turned out just by using some Dollar Tree pumpkins and adding some buffalo check gingham ribbon to it. I am sharing my version of this farmhouse fall box. Now, I was inspired by something I saw on Instagram. I will link my inspiration in the description box below because I do want to give credit for that inspiration. I am all about community over competition and supporting other creatives. Now, the supplies that I used are mostly from the Dollar Tree, with the exception of the paper that came from Hobby Lobby. So I have, you know, the pumpkin, the box, the flowers, the stickers, the styrofoam, and the little welcome sign is from that little harvest pack of galvanized words. The first thing I did was remove the raffia bow. I took off the leaf as well as cut off that jute stem. I didn't need that. Then I took my elephant chalk paint. It is a gray paint, and I paint it around the edges of the pumpkin. I don't paint the whole front, but I do paint the back. I'm painting the edges because if my paper doesn't secure all the way to the edges, I'll show you that a little bit later, then I don't see any of the orange of the pumpkin, that it will blend in with the back. I wanted to make a bit of distressing, so just follow along with me here. I have my hot glue and I am just going around the pumpkin and I'm just going to just put some hot glue on there. It is going to make some humps and bumps, and I don't care if it's more in one place. It just kind of adds to the distressing of it. I think it adds character to it, and I achieves the look that I was going for. So I just make the rims and the edges of the pumpkin. I should have completed this step before I painted my pumpkin, but I just completely forgot. So if you recreated, trace out your paper first so you don't make this mistake that I'm going to show you. Anyway, so I traced out the pumpkin, and then as you can see, I'm cutting here. I'm like, oh no, I got some paint on there. Oh my goodness. So I have to trace out another one, and don't make that same mistake. So do it before you paint your pumpkin. Anyway, so then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Mod Podge, and I'm doing this slowly because I'm going to show you that it gives me the best results. What I'm looking for is I'm trying to create some ridges on my pumpkin, and so I just put a little bit of Mod Podge on there, and then I'm going to put some on the paper, and I'm going to work in sections, smoothing that down with my little scraper, and also I have this little tool, that little tool, I forget what it's called. Anyway, but I smooth that down the best that I can. I'm not putting a coat of Mod Podge on the top of the paper until the bottom completely dries. I learned that from watching someone else's video. That if you let it completely dry before you put your Mod Podge on there, that you don't have any of the bubbles. Now, I just have some of the raised areas where my ridges of my pumpkins are, and I'm completely okay with that. But if you don't want bubbles in your paper of your when you put Mod Podge on, let it completely dry before you put the top coat on. Now I'm going to take my coarse sandpaper. I have a 60 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to rough up the edges, just kind of taking off some of that. And you can kind of see where like a little glob of the glue kind of makes it a little more raised. And as I run my sandpaper over it, it gives more of the distressed look. You're going to have some paper particles or dust particles. I just use this tack cloth. I will have a link in the description below if you would like to check it out. So that I use these in my craft room all of the time, and it helps me get off those little dust particles and clean up my projects. So now what I'm doing is I am putting a second coat of Mod Podge on top of my little pumpkin. Going to give some shading to my pumpkin. I'm using this Americana brown color in milk chocolate. I just take my flat brush. I will have a link in the description below of the brushes that I use because I do get questions about those. Anyway, but to do my shading, I have some clean water. I dip half of my brush in water, half of my brush in paint, smooth it out or blend it on a paper towel, and then I shade my projects. To wrap the stem, I'm using this burlap from the Dollar Tree. I cut it in half because it's a little easier for me to work with. And then I'm going to hot glue it to the stem. I'm using my pink finger caps. They're little hot glue finger caps, kind of protect your fingers. You can get them in any craft store where glue is sold. I will have a link in the description to my Amazon store. Also, a friend had shared that she found some over at the Dollar Tree. The box I'm using is also from the Dollar Tree. It is 4.5 inches tall, and then it is 5.5 inches wide. So it's the perfect little size for me. And what I'm going to do is give it 2 coats of this elephant gray chalk paint. To add some extra touches, I take my fine Sharpie marker, just go around the pumpkin to enhance it a little bit. This is strictly a personal preference of mine. I like to do that, as well as give some splattering to my projects. I'm using some of the brown paint that I used for the shading. And then I didn't show it on camera, but I painted my galvanized welcome black, and then now I'm showing you I gave everything a coat of varnish. Now to glue the welcome to my front of the pumpkin, I'm using this rapid fuse glue. It is like a super glue. It glues really fast, and I don't know, I just find better results with this rather than just using hot glue on this. So I just use my rapid fuse glue to it, and then it just, you know, attaches there to the pumpkin. And then for the fall, I'm just taking my stickers and I'm not putting them all the way down. I just want to make sure that I have them centered. So then once I figure out the placement, I go back and I put them where I want them. You can also use your Cricut silhouette, or if you find another place that has stickers, to spell out the word that you would like it to. Now I'm just going back with some black paint and touching up some of the little parts that just by handling that welcome sign, it just kind of came off a little bit. And then to attach the pumpkin to my box, I am just hot gluing that on there, and then now it's time to decorate it. So this is how my box is looking so far. I just input those 3 little sections of styrofoam in there and then covered it with Excelsior. Now I'm just adding some flowers to the box, just hot gluing them in there. Some of them I don't even think I hot glued. I just stuck them in there until I like the look of it. I am not a professional floral designer. I've never been to the floral design school. I just stick flowers in there until I like it, like the look of it. I added some of those hot bushes from Dollar Tree. I love those little flowers that the Dollar Tree has now. Now we're going to make a bow. The black and white and the orange and white is from Hobby Lobby. The white chevron and the burlap is from Dollar Tree, and that other little burlap is from Walmart. I got that at an after Christmas sale several years ago. Now I cut these ribbons at 12 inches, and then I just make a dovetail or V-cut, however you want to say it. I like to do that. It kind of adds just a little finishing touch for my bows. Now using my little mini stapler, tiny attacher. This is one of my favorite crafting tools. I have mentioned that before. I layer my ribbons the way that I want, and then I secure them with the little stapler. It just kind of holds everything together. And then just taking this little burlap. This is the one that I got after Christmas from Walmart. And then I just make a little bow. It's like a 3-inch loop with like some 5-inch tails. So then I just make that like that. I have this little piece of burlap that's kind of the end of the roll of the burlap. I kind of like the way that it looks curly like that. So I just layer everything on top of each other. And then I'm like, we got to add some raffia, because this country girl would not have a country project without some raffia. So we're adding that to the middle of that and layering that burlap on top of that. I have a chenille stem that I will twist everything around and secure it all together. And then I just hot glue the bow to the little stem just right there on the top. And this little project is complete. So I am just using this ribbon from Dollar General. I picked it up this year, 2020. It was $2 for this roll. And also I'm using some cinnamon sticks for the stem. Now what I did, I didn't want it too big, so I just measured out my ribbon and just it was like about 5 inches, I think. And I really didn't, I wanted more room at the top so that I would have room for stuffing and for getting my stick in there and for gluing it. So I just, you know, cut off the ribbon and then just glued the sides. Well, first I folded it over so that it would have the crease at the bottom, and then I just glued the sides, and the only thing that was open was the top. Wanted my corners around the bottom to be more rounded, so I just glued the corners and then I used my little spatula and held that down, and that worked really good. And so then now I'm going to decorate my pumpkins. So I have some pip berries, and then I also have this green colored wire that I purchased at Hobby Lobby in the craft floral section. I know that I will get questions about this. I will have it written out in the description box also, so that you will know where to find it or where I purchased it in the floral section at Hobby Lobby. And so it is paper colored or paper covered wire, and it works great for little projects like this. And so then I just trim off the berries and just hot glue everything together. I'm taking more of the burlap, cutting that in half, and then I just kind of twist it like a bow tie and just put that on there because I wanted a little ragged bow. And then I'm just taking strips of raffia and just tying it around to make a bow. And I just love these little pumpkins. I can't wait to make more. Guys, I appreciate you watching, and if you recreate any of the videos today, I invite you to share pictures with me over in my free Facebook community called Country Charm Crafty Community. You will need to request to join. I will approve you, and then you can share your recreations with me or inspire me and show me what you've created. I have this small little wooden crate from the Dollar Tree, and I just painted it this, it's called Antique White Color by Americana. I just gave it a coat of that. I took my antique vintage photo ink, and with my little finger dauber I just gave it some distressing so that it looked a little more worn. And this is what I'm going to be putting my pumpkins in. And to fill it, I just used some of the Excelsior. Now I like the whimsy look, and so I do share just crafts just to inspire you, but you as the creator can definitely use what you want and as much or as little as you would like to. Just added some small little flowers from the Dollar Tree, just sticking them in there. And then I have some homespun fabric that just coordinating with this rustic fall little arrangement. And I'm just going to tear off a strip of that. I like the ragged edges when I tear it, and just probably tore it about an inch. And I just, tie that around the crate, and then in the middle, just tie it into a knot. If you feel that there is too much in this little crate where it's too bunched up, you can always, not put quite as much as I do, but I like the whimsy look for my projects. I'm using one of these small chalkboard labels from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just using this little paint pen. It is a Posca white paint pen, and I am just going to hand letter pumpkin patch, and then I will stick that into the crate with my little pumpkins. Pumpkin patch decor piece. Now guys, if I would not have told you that these pumpkins were made out of this Lucky Charms cereal box, would you have guessed it? All right, let me go ahead and show you how I did it. The base of my pumpkin patch is a 12 by 16 canvas that I had on hand, and I'm going to use it like a shadow box, meaning I flipped it over and the bottom or the back side will become what I'm going to be using for my pumpkin patch. Now, the paper is from Hobby Lobby. It's like this old fence board looking, and I didn't have enough, or it wasn't long enough for it to reach all the way down. So I did end up piecing a little piece of a second sheet to it and then cut it down so it could fit in there. And so then for the frame, what I like to do is I have these giant craft sticks that I get from Walmart, and I cut them down to size, and it's not really any kind of rhyme or reason. I just like the, kind of wonky look kind of thing. If it looks just a little bit, has a little space between it. I want it to look old and like we're in a pumpkin patch. And so what I did is I cut those down just with my scissors, and then I gave them a coat of antique wax, and that is Waverly, that you can get also at Walmart. And so then I'm going to, just hot glue these on to my frame so that it looks like it's a picture. And just for added interest and to give it a more defined look, I'm just taking my distress ink and going around each of the slats just to give it a little bit of interest and whimsical touches. Sometimes when I am making patterns, I like to use freezer paper to draw out patterns. So just kind of sharing that tip. And so I just kind of tore off a piece, and then now I'm going to pencil out kind of how big and long I want my first pumpkin to be. So after I cut out my pattern, then I just kind of measure how big I am going to need the box. And so again, this is a giant cereal box. This just happened to be a Lucky Charms box, but any one of these would work because they're just worked out really, really good for my little pumpkin patch. So what I did is I just tore around it because I wanted those tattered edges just to give that, ripped effect. I really was looking for that in this cardboard. Tearing it the way that it did really gave me that effect. And so I did that with the tall pumpkin. Then I will also do a little squattier pumpkin as well. Going to add some black Sharpie marker just to add more definition and whimsical touches, and I'm going to explain this. I use a fine Sharpie marker, then I go around the edges again with an ultra fine Sharpie marker, and that gives me the additional whimsical touches that I like for my projects. Then once I do that, then I will be using some buttermilk paint just to give it some squiggles and even more definition and cuteness for my pumpkins. Added height for my pumpkins, I have these tumbling tower blocks. Now these came from Five Below, and they're a little bit larger than the ones that you can get from Dollar Tree, and so I chose to use those. I'm just placing them in different areas of my 12 by 16 canvas, just so that my pumpkins have something to hold them up. And then I'll continue to one thing that I did want to mention is I do give a gloss varnish to all of my projects. I like that look. The varnish I use is Ceramcoat Delta. I do have it listed in my Amazon shop as well. I'll just continue to add here to my pumpkin patch. I like some fine Excelsior. I will add just some greenery and different little florals. I will also add for the stem of the pumpkins, I'm going to take some burlap, wrap that around the stems just for added interest, and just kind of just dress these up, and I absolutely love the finished result. For a bow, I have this ribbon that I got at Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut some of that off of there. I'm also going to be making a bow with some different fabrics, some brown fabric, some muslin fabric. I just have all kind of cute whimsical things here. I have some of this vine right here that I got at I've had it in my stash for a long time. I think I got that at Dollar Tree many years ago. I wish I could find it back, but I did find something very similar to this at Hobby Lobby in their specialty ribbon section. They have some small vine looking leaves like this over in Hobby Lobby. So just wanted to share that little tip with you. And guys, I so appreciate you watching. I have over 750 videos on my YouTube channel that is filled with crafts like this, and new people are finding me all of the time, and you haven't seen all of my stuff because it's buried in the YouTube libraries and that kind of thing. So I am so glad that you're here. If you are a long time follower of Country Charm by Tracy, I so appreciate you because you guys rock. Let me tell you, you have helped me build my community to what it is today, and you are the backbone of my community. And so I do like to share different crafts that I've done previous years because not everybody has seen all of the fun creative things that we come up with here. Guys, I absolutely love how this turned out. What I did is I went back and added some sunflowers, some a pumpkins sign, some more greenery, some pip berries, just some little bitty coordinating flowers, and I just absolutely love this so much. I love turning this into that, and just something that was meant for the trash or meant for the recycle bin that we can turn into wonderful fall decor just like this piece. Thank you so much for being here. Hey guys, these canned pumpkins are using recycled cans. This is not my idea. I was inspired by something that I saw on Pinterest. If it's your idea, thank you so very much. And I absolutely love the way that these canned pumpkins turned out. And this is how I did it. I gave it a coat of plaster color chalk paint because I needed my cans to have something for my acrylic paint to stick to. Now these are just regular cans out of my pantry. I had cooked the night before, and so I had washed them out, ran them through my dishwasher, and so I did get some questions on how I got the lids off so that they would not have the jagged, sharp edges. I have a smooth edge can opener that I use to open all of my cans in my kitchen. Now you can get those off of Amazon. You can get electric ones as well as handheld ones, but you'll need a smooth edge can opener if you want to cut the lids around where it's a smooth edge and not those sharp edges. And so also some friends had mentioned that you don't even need that. You can just turn the can over and use the bottom, just attach all of the cute stuff to that. Absolutely. Just giving you options if you want to have the lid or the actual top of the can like I did. That's how you get it off with a smooth edge. All right, so then what I'm using here, guys, is just right here what I'm showing you. Those are pip berries. I get them off of a garland in the fall season at Hobby Lobby, and then they have these long kind of like wiry looking pieces, and so then I saved those, and then that's what I'm going to use, twist those around to make little pumpkin tendrils for that. Now for the stems of my pumpkins, I'm using just some wood slices that I got from the Dollar Tree, and so then that is what I'm going to do to glue onto the top of my top of my lids, and then I'm going to decorate it with, you know, those little tendrils. I'm also have some little greenery. Now I found this greenery at the Dollar Tree. I've had it on hand for a few years, but you can find little vine greenery like this at Hobby Lobby in the specialty ribbon section. They have some that I found over there, and then I'm going to just add like some little bows with some muslin and some just different fabric, some, you know, hemp cording, and just make it really cute and whimsical. And I just kind of styled my tin can pumpkin patch with one of my hand lettered signs. I love it so much, and it's just amazing that we can make cute home decor just with some recycled items from our pantry. In this tutorial, I'm going to share how I took my tin can pumpkins and made them look a little more upscale with using some of those plastic tiles that you can get from the Dollar Tree, or I found mine at Family Dollar. They're great in crafting. Many crafters are using these tiles, and so I wanted to show you real quick how I created the white pumpkin DIYs using some of these tiles. Now for the cans, I have just some recycled cans that I had, you know from dinner the night before or something like that. And so since I was going to be covering them with the plastic tiles, I just painted the top and the bottom so that they would be all covered. Now I took the plastic tile and I had to kind of measure out the length of it, and so then I could wrap that around. I also took the tops off using my when I opened up the can, using my smooth edge can opener. That is the key to get the smooth edges. They have electric ones, or you can get handheld ones at some of the stores, or you can find them on Amazon. So I cut off a piece of that plastic tile to go ahead and have that attach that to my top so that I could, that it all looks cohesive and looks really high end. And so what I did is I just wrapped my can around, and then I just cut it with my scissors. These tiles cut very easy. And then what I did, I just gave it a coat of the plaster color chalk paint, let that dry. Then to give it a little bit of distressing, I used my Distress ink by Tim Holtz. I like the color Vintage Photo, and I just used my little finger dauber. That is just a little thing I put on my finger. You can get those at the craft store as well. And I just go around the entire can as well as the top, just to give it a little bit of distressing. For the topper, what I did is I decorated it with some burlap leaves, some different kind of looking picks that I got off of a garland from Hobby Lobby, and also just some hemp cording and that kind of thing. The burlap leaves, what I did is I just cut pieces off of those. Those are in the bigger packs that you can get from the Dollar Tree, but I have seen like fall leaves, burlap leaves at different stores. And so that's what I did. I also added a little bit of Excelsior or Spanish moss to that as well. Now, if you don't have a smooth edge can opener and you just cut off your tops, you can always use the bottom of your can to create it look like the top. For the stems of the pumpkins, I just used little wood slices from the Dollar Tree, or I also have seen those over at Hobby Lobby. So I'll just continue to do that and just decorate the tops of my white tin can pumpkins that I think they look very high end. And the additional touches of the curly cues, I think that really adds a lot to my pumpkins. And so to get those little pieces of extra, those are from just different garlands that I get off of a strand. I usually get those at Hobby Lobby, and then when I untwist them off the garland, then they have like a long thing that twists around the garland. I save those because then I use them as my tendrils for my canned pumpkins. And I am just using my wire curling tools that were sent to me by a friend and follower. I will have the link to those in the description box under the link is called Wire Curling Tools if you would like to check out exactly what I'm using. For this next pumpkin DIY, I'm using a leftover recycled can from my grandson's baby formula. And so kept those on hand because I'm like, these are too good to throw away. I could do a craft with that, right? We all have those, you know, I have a craft supply full of things that I'm like, oh, one day I can do something really good with that. Well, today is the day that I'm doing something with it. All right, so guys, what I did is I just did it the same way. I painted the top and the bottom with that plaster chalk paint, and then I just wrapped a piece of that plastic, you know, tile around and gave it a coat of chalk paint, and then just, you know, gave it some distressing with my distress ink like I did with the other ones. Okay, so this one, what I'm doing is making a little flower arrangement, and I'm just using just some different florals, just different things that I've had on hand as far as, you know, like that I've gotten from Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Dollar Tree, that kind of thing. I did put some styrofoam in there, and these little cans like this are just little arrangement is just, you can brighten someone's day. Maybe if you need to visit a friend in the hospital, you know, maybe someone that's living in an assisted living area, somebody like that, or just a friend that is going through a difficult time. This would be a great just a pick me up kind of I'm thinking about you gift. So I'll continue to add just different things to my floral arrangement, like these right here. These are paper covered wire that I got in the floral section at Walmart. And what I did is I just took a longer like floral pick and then tied some, or just wrapped some floral tape around it just to make it a little longer. And so to twist them, I'm just using those wire curling tools, a larger barrel, just to, you know, twist it around. Now, I am, you know, I'm just a little bitty fish in the big sea of YouTube algorithm, and I am always getting new watchers, new friends, new followers, new subscribers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Guys, I have almost 750 different videos on my channel, and not everyone has seen all of my videos. And so what I do is, this is from a YouTube or a Facebook Live that I did that I crafted in real time. And so YouTube kind of likes to the point. They don't like the chitter chatter, you know, and that kind of thing. I will leave a link in the description if you would like to see the original video of me talking everything through, you know, the little chit chat, that kind of thing. But as I said, I'm trying to accommodate everybody, and then also give, you know, my new viewers a chance to see projects that I have done previously, because they're so stinking cute, and I am constantly getting new watchers. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you. If you've been here for a while, you are what has grown my community. Thank you so much. All right, so then for this project, I'm using an old fence post. It's just boards that were like fence pickets, and then I had my husband cut them down to about 12 inches, you know, long. And And so what I did is I took this is another smashed can, or one of those vegetable cans. I just cut the top and the bottom, then I smashed it, and then I wrapped it with that plastic tile, give it a coat of chalk paint, gave it some distressing with that vintage photo distress ink. And so then to put holes for my can to attach to my board, I use my crocodile. That's what I'm holding in my hand right there. You can get those at the craft store, or you can get them off of Amazon if you don't know what I'm talking about. And so what I did is I drilled 2 holes in the board and then thread some wire through there, and then that's what I attached my can. And I'm using some hot glue just to, glue it in place a bit, and use my needle nose pliers to give it a little bit of more security. And then I am just sticking different fall looking flowers in this pocket. This could easily be changed out for the different seasons. I love that, where it's not permanent, so that you can change it out for the different seasons. And I just love how all 3 of these different white pumpkin projects turned out. I think they look so high end. Fall decor. These turned out so cute. I used some canvases, some rectangle canvases, as well as just some different fun embellishments. So let me share what I did. The canvases that I'm using 2 8x10 canvases. One I just turned sideways. The other is an 11x14 canvas that we're going to make these square pumpkins. Okay, these are the papers that I selected. I wanted something that was a little bit bright and not real, because I'm going to distress them myself with some ink and, markers and all that, what I like to do. So I am just kind of figuring out where I'm going to put the papers. I'm going to line them up where the circles match. I don't have a big enough sheet of paper because these papers are 12x12, so I'm just going to line them up. And once I embellish them by inking and putting markers and gluing all the embellishments, it really is okay. Okay, here I just have some decoupage or Mod Podge, and I just put that on the 11x14 canvas. And since I'm using 2 of these 12x12 sheets of paper. Now this particular paper I did have in my stash. It was part of a large bundle of paper that I got years ago at Hobby Lobby. And so, this is just ideas. You can if you would like to recreate this, just use the paper that matches your style. So here I'm just kind of, trying to figure out, okay, how do I need the circles so that they line up? I'm okay if they have a little crinkles in them, because I think that adds to the character of the pumpkins, because my projects and my crafts are usually country. And so I'm just using, like I said, some decoupage, some Mod Podge. It's kind of the same thing. It's just a glue that holds down the paper. I'm just using my Cricut spatula just to smooth everything down, and then I'm going to work on this one. This orange paper, it was a little bit brighter. I was looking for something, just a little different than my normal, and so I like this paper and all these patterns. I think it looks really pretty, and just all ties in together with all the embellishments and everything. So I'll just keep going around using my decoupage, Mod Podge, and just smoothing all of that on, and just cutting the paper, kind of wrapping it like you do a present or a gift. For the stems of my pumpkins, I am using small, just scrap wood. Now, I've had these in my stash for several years. When my husband and I were doing wood crafts, we were doing the craft show circuit. He would cut out my wood, and then we would have, you know, extra boards and that kind of thing. And so he was awesome and would just cut them into little pieces like this, and so that I could, you know, paint on them, or, you know, use them for little different things for my projects. So I'm just giving this a coat of a brown acrylic paint, and this is going to be the stem of my pumpkins. They're going to, you know, I'm just going to attach them with just some glue, and then I'm going to put my embellishments on and everything like that. So now my canvases are all dry, and I'm just kind of positioning, trying to see how I want to, what collection that I want them to be in. And so then what I'm going to use, I'm using some mixed media projects or products. They're like in the scrapbooking section. All of these are going to be linked in my Amazon store. Now, these are called gelatos. They're just like a paste that, you know, that can distress your projects. Now, I am just sharing some things that I have for my mixed media when I like to do this. And so the gelatos, like I said, is a paste. It kind of, you know, you can wet it with your fingers, or I can wet it with my fingers to kind of blend it in a little bit, just to give a bit of distressing to my pumpkins and to kind of countrify them just a little bit. And so that's why I wanted to use the brighter paper, because I knew that I was going to use some of this distressing paste and markers and different sprays and things like that. Now, if you're interested in where you can find these type of things, they're usually found in the scrapbooking section of like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, or as I mentioned, they are linked in my Amazon store if you would like to get a little bit more information, because you know, some of these things have been around for a couple of years, and I love using them. Now, to expose the wood just a little, I'm just using my sanding block and just exposing a bit of the wood. I use my tack cloth to wipe off any of the dust particles. Then I like to give my projects a gloss sealer. This is the one that I like the most. So I just give all of my stems, or each of my stems, as well as go around the canvases, and it kind of just seals everything in, and I don't have to worry about it you know, coming up or anything like that. Okay, to attach the stem to the top of the canvas, to make it look like the pumpkin stem, I'm using a combination of E6000 glue as well as hot glue. The E6000 is the permanent hold, and then the hot glue kind of gives it the instant hold. So I'm just, you know, going to do this to all three of my pumpkins. And like I said, I use that 2 8.5s by 11 canvas. And so then by turning them, you know, different ways, one sideways, then that gives me a different look. And so then now I'm just, you know, gluing all of my pumpkins together. I'm just using my E6000 as well as my hot glue. I'm also going to be using my electric staple gun. Now, I have had that staple gun. I got it at Sears many years ago. I know that maybe other places has electric staple guns. If not, you can use a manual gun or attach it, you know, if you want to recreate this project, you can, you know, secure it any way that you can, you know, secure your projects. Okay, at this point, I'm like, it's missing something. So I had forgotten to put the curves or the ridges of the pumpkins, but that's not a problem. I'm just taking my brown gelato and just making the curves of the pumpkins. If you were to recreate this, I would suggest doing this before you attach them all together and not make the error like I did. But hey, it all works, and we are good. And so what I do is I wet my finger and just, you know, because it gives it a distressed look, and then it's all, you know, kind of blends in together there. Okay, then now I'm going to use my fine Sharpie marker, and then I just go around each of the pumpkins just to give some extra doodling, because you know, guys, that's what I like to do. Thank you so much for all of your sweet comments. Welcome anyone who's new. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I love to share crafty ideas with a bit of rustic country charm, just like these rustic square pumpkins. Okay, this is an ivy garland that I got maybe Hobby Lobby at one of the craft stores. I had it in my stash, and so I like it. This you know, it has like some wire in it so that I can form it a bit, and I like using these type of different textures on my projects because it does give it a realistic feel. And so I'm just using my wire cutters just to cut off pieces of them, and then I will like twist it around my fingers just to kind of look like it's more cascading down, like what leaves on a pumpkin would look like. And so then I'm going to use my staple gun as well, and just make sure that I staple the ivy to the wood frame so that it all, you know, secures together. Now I'm going to make my bow, my junk bow, messy bow, refab bow, whatever one chooses to call it. And I just have some different strips of fabric, some muslin fabric in different colors, as well as some polka dotted orange ribbon. I'm sure I got that at Hobby Lobby. I'm also using strips of orange rickrack. You can also get that at the craft store. And so then I was singeing the edges of the rickrack so that it would not fray. And then this small 1-inch burlap I've had in my stash for a couple of years, and you know, I'm not quite sure where I got that one from. About here, I'm like, yeah, it needs a little something. So I pulled out some tool. It's like a glittery tool, but the glitter doesn't come off. And I think I got this at Hobby Lobby as well, or maybe Walmart, something like that. And I just cut off strips of that, and I decided to add it to my bow to provide a bit of softness to my bow. I think I just love working with all these different textures of ribbon, and you know, different you know, just different mediums that all work together and just make the project so cute. Okay, I just fluffed out my bows a bit, just making sure that none of my ribbon tails were tucked underneath there. Then I used, you know, hot glue and my staple gun just to attach the bows to the wooden frame as well, so that everything's nice and secure. Okay, now I'm going to add some Stiffen Quick. It is a stiffener for ribbon and or for fabric or anything, but I like to use this on my bows that are ribbon, or like this fabric is a little limp, and so that it kind of gives it some formation, and I really like the way that turns out. I didn't put a hanger or anything like that, but one could, you know, totally do that. I just set them on my shelf and just lean them up against my mirror. Anyway, I love the way that these turned out, and I hope you do as well. Everything is so nice and fun and funky and country. Okay, for this project, I'm using a 12 by 12 canvas, and it is a mixed media pumpkin project. Now, this 12 by 12 canvas. You know, I get my canvases at Michael's, I do believe. And I picked up some patterns that were at my thrift store. And I like to use patterns and stuff like this, all different kind of textures when you're doing a mixed media project. I'm using my decoupage or Mod Podge, that kind of thing. And I just, you know, put the pattern across the canvas, and then I just glue it all down so that all the sides and everything were covered as well. I'll just go over it with that decoupage, and then I just have some pieces of just from an old book, and I crumple them up and I tear them, and I'm just going to ink around them to give it some depth and dimension. That is really what mixed media is. You can use all kind of different paper products, different kind of scrapbook paper and everything like that. You know, this just really is a piece of art just by the different textures and different things that you use. I'm just using my little heat tool in between the different layers to dry the glue as much as I could. When you're using mixed media, there's lots of different products that you can use. This right here, this white stuff is called gesso or gesso. I'm not really sure. And I don't know, it just kind of adds just different texture. And then I had this stencil in my stash. You can get stencils at, you know, the craft store and different, you know, on Amazon, that kind of thing. And then I just use my Stays On ink just to provide just some different, you know, patterns of stamps, and the distress ink as well as different stamps. Now I get my stamps and different things from the craft store. Always look in the clearance section, because sometimes you can find some really cool different stamps. Anyway, okay, so then now I'm using this gelato, and as I mentioned in my in the other pumpkin project, you can find these gelatos in my Amazon store. I'm not quite sure if they sell them in the craft store. I have never really looked, because I purchased mine off of Amazon. And so then I'll just go around the different torn edges, just wetting my finger to blend it in a bit. And then I'm using some distress spray. You can also get that at the craft store, and you can just find everything in the scrapbooking section. That is where you're going to find the majority of the products that I am using in these projects. Okay, so here I'm using just a small stencil, and then I'm using my palette knife as well as some texture paste, because I am just going around it, and it gives it some dimension. And I just use my palette knife just to, you know, spread it on the stencil, just to give it just different. Every piece is always different when you're doing a mixed media. Here I'm going to use my orange gelato and just going over where the textured paste is, and then it is I just use my finger just to spread it out and blend it in a bit, and then it was just a little bright, so I just took a baby wipe and just kind of rubbed off some of the color so that it wouldn't be quite as bright. And then I just sprayed on some more distress ink. Now here, this is my pumpkin, and I'm sure I just I don't even know where I got this design. I probably just had a pumpkin. Maybe I designed it on my Cricut. I'm not really sure. It was something that I had in my stash, and so I'm not quite sure where I got, but you know, you can get pumpkin patterns anywhere. And so then I'm just going around the edges, just giving it some inking and some distressing. And so I just kind of layer it all in there together, and just decoupage it all down, or Mod Podge would work as well. These zigzag chevron shapes are something that I cut out on my Cricut. There's different designs that you can get, you know, in Design Space. And so then I just decoupaged, Mod Podged those down as well. And so then now to give it a bit more distress, I'm using my Faber-Castell markers. And if you watch anyone that does mixed media, sometimes they will use this. You can kind of blend them a bit more with your fingers. That's what I'm doing. Now, I'm not a mixed media artist. This is just, you know, projects that I wanted to try, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of sharing my projects, but I am by no means a mixed media artist. And so I just, by watching other mixed media videos and just, you know, looking at mixed media art, these are the kind of things that they do. You can just make beautiful, beautiful projects just by adding all of the different layers. Basically, that's what it is, just adding different layers. So then now I'm just painting on some leaves and some tendrils of my pumpkins just to give it a little bit more realistic look. Now I'm going to work on the message that I want for my board. And so I just am hand lettering Happy Fall, Y'all. And I'll do my little happy dots and my doodles and that kind of thing. I'm just cutting it apart, and then I'll tear it because I like the torn edges. I think that it, you know, kind of all ties everything together in this mixed media project. Now I like to do this because that's my look, and I appreciate so many kind friends saying that they, you know, like my style of lettering. I have found a free font that is the most realistic to my lettering. My lettering is all different. You know, I know people have asked about, you know, providing that, but it depends on what word I'm writing, depends on the letters and everything. So it is called Gel Dotica font. I will have it linked for you in the description below. You can, you know, maybe print it out and on different colors of cardstock, and then you can use it for your project. I used my white Faber-Castell marker to add some highlight to the letters, and I think it just ties everything together. I'm using some glossy accents, just this glossy accents that I picked up in the scrapbooking section as well, and I just glued that down. That just, I don't really know, I can't remember why I used that, but I saw a lot of other mixed media artists use that, so that's what I use. Anyway, so then now I'm just putting some black slick paint just to give it a bit more dimension, and I just love the way that this little pumpkin mixed media project turned out, and I hope you do too. Okay, next up is my Country Rustic Burlap Pumpkin Wreath. Now, this is one that I did using burlap that I buy off of the bolt. I bought many yards of the burlap. I don't know how many yards it took. I'm so sorry, but I usually have lots of burlap in my stash. And so I just say, just use, the burlap. You just have to kind of figure out how much you want on it. And when I work with burlap, where I cut it with my rotary cutter, I always wear a mask so that I don't breathe the fibers. And so then I roll out my burlap and I cut at 6 inches width. And that is, I just cut a lot of strips, and then I, form it onto my wreath frame so that, it makes it full. And then depending on how full I want it will depend on how many strips I need. And so here I'm just showing you the strips of the burlap. The more you work with it, the more it frays. And so that's where the mask comes in. So I definitely recommend a mask. So here are all of the supplies that I'm thinking about using. I haven't decided which of the ribbons I'm going to use, but definitely want a black and white gingham or buffalo check. The frame is a 14-inch metal frame that I got from the Dollar Tree. So then now to start my burlap, I just have a chenille stem and I just thread it through the burlap, and then I just attach it to the frame, and then I'm doing the poof technique, and just by going in and out those wires, you can start to see how the burlap frays. Now, I'll be honest with you, this orange burlap does fray a lot more than just the natural burlap. But, I figured out this was the look that I was going for. And so I've decided to, go ahead and go with this. But, make sure that you use your mask when you're working with this type of burlap. So I cut off the ends of that burlap, and I'm just threading another piece. And you may see that I did not attach the end of that burlap, and it's because I'm going to cut that a little bit shorter, and that's going to give me some fraying on the edges of that. But I'm going to go ahead and do that once I get the wreath finished, and then I see what ends are a little bit too long. And then I go back and I trim my edges, any strings, any, things that are a little bit too long. So I'm just going to continue making these little poofs. Okay, I'm going to leave just a section for some green burlap. Now, I've decided not to use any of the ribbon that I showed in my supplies. I remembered that I had some green burlap that I'm going to use for the per se leaves, and so I'm just doing it the same way. I am just taking my rotary cutter and I'm cutting a few strips of this green burlap, and then I will attach it to the frame in the same way. I'm leaving a little section so that I can add some brown burlap for a stem. So I'm just making my stem here, just trying to figure out how I want to do it. So I just rolled up a piece of burlap and then just hot gluing the edges so that it stays. Those little Mod Podge hot glue fingertips are a lifesaver when it comes to your fingers. So anyway, I'm just gluing that shut and then just trying to figure out how I want to attach this stem to this frame. So as I'm working with this, I realized that this thing is really too long. So I cut it down and then I figure out how I'm going to attach it, because the stem it doesn't need to be that long. So anyway, the best thing that I found to attach this little stem to the frame is with a little zip tie. And you can get little zip ties at Walmart, at the craft store, at, you know, so many different places. And so I just threaded through that little burlap and attach it directly to the frame. And then what I'll do is I'll put that third strip of burlap and cover up any of the, any of the little holes, and then just readjust my leaves so they, my wreath looks the way that I want it to. For the bow, I've just decided to use this buffalo check ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby. So I'm just making a simple 4-loop bow, 2 loops on each side. And so I'm just going to, play around with it, figure out how long I want the tails, and then I will attach it to the wreath. In working with this buffalo check ribbon from Hobby Lobby, I realized even though it's wired, it's very flimsy wired, and so I'm using my Aleene's Stiffen Quick spray adhesive, because it's going to stiffen up this ribbon a little bit, and it just kind of gives me the body of the ribbon of what I'm looking for. Now, for me, it would not be a country wreath without adding some raffia. So what I did is I just took several strands of raffia and I made a simple little bow, just tied a knot in it. And then now what I'm doing is I threaded some wire, some very thin wire. I like to get the wire from Dollar Tree, and I threaded it through the back of that bow, and then I thread it through the burlap, and then I go ahead and attach it to my wreath. And I just fiddle with the bow to get it however I like it. What I decided to do is take this wreath outside and give it a good coat of sealer. This is the sealer that I use, this Mod Podge matte sealer. I just sprayed the whole thing on the front and the back with this Mod Podge matte clear acrylic sealer. And also, to give it a little extra pizzazz, I had some of this spray glitter paint that I have in my craft. I'm starting with one of these pumpkin wood cutouts from the Dollar Tree. I took off the string, and then I'm going to give it 2 coats of this Americana acrylic paint in the color Espresso. To add my polka dots, I have this set of foam brushes that I picked up from Michael's, and it has different sizes of foam brushes in it. I'm using the 1-inch foam circle brush, as well as some spiced pumpkin acrylic paint, and just dipping that in, I load up my sponge brush very, where it's quite a bit in there. And how I do my polka dots is I start in the middle of my project and then I work from there. I usually do like a 1, 2, and then I space them out accordingly. And, that way, if I start in the middle, I feel that my polka dots are more even. to add a bit of more pizzazz, I'm just taking the end of a paintbrush, dipping it in that same orange spice pumpkin paint, and just doing 3 dots throughout the whole pumpkin. For this pumpkin, I'm using one of these from the Dollar Tree that come on a stand. I removed everything off of the pumpkin and just took my sanding sponge and got off any of the excess glitter or anything like that. Now I'm taking my needle nose fine tip Sure Bonder glue gun and just hot gluing some bulk or some dimension or some ribs of the pumpkins. I've done this on other projects and I really like the way that it turned out once I put the scrapbook paper on there. This whiteboard scrapbook paper came from Hobby Lobby, and so I just cut that out, and then I'm going to adhere it. Once the hot glue is dry, then I adhere it with some Mod Podge, and I take my time and I just take my squeegee and just, make sure that my Mod Podge is, really covering, and I just go around and just, with my foam brush and just put some Mod Podge and just take that squeegee and just form it around the ribs of the pumpkin. The smallest pumpkin in this trio, I'm using one of these pumpkins off of the garland that had the footballs on it from Dollar Tree. I just took off the paper, and what helped me is just taking a wet wipe and laying it over there on top of the pumpkin so that the paper would peel off easier. The paper I'm using is from this paper stack from Hobby Lobby. It's a lot of checks and gingham and, just in fun colors and, really speaks to my heart. So I just cut that out of this orange and white scrapbook paper, and then I'm going to do the same thing with like I did with the other pumpkin, just to make some ribs of the pumpkin. I just took my hot glue gun, the smaller needle nose Sure Bonder hot glue gun that I got from Hobby Lobby. Works great for projects like this because I can get a very thin line and thicken it up as I want to as I work on my projects. And guys, you know me, I can't stop there. I have to add some distressing and dimension to my pumpkins. So I just have my ink pad. My vintage photo is the color. You can get this at the craft store, or I do have it linked in my Amazon store if you would like to have it shipped to you or get more details. But what I do is I just have a finger dauber. It just fits on my finger, and it just helps with, putting ink on your projects like this. And I just go around to add some dimension, as well as some puffy paint. I have colors orange and I have brown. The orange I'm going to use for the smallest pumpkin, and this just enhances the ribs of the pumpkins. This is just something that I like to do because, I just like to do all the extras, and I am so grateful that the Lord has sent so many sweet friends to my channel that love these type of projects as well. I am so grateful for you that are watching this. All right. So I did the orange, and then now I'm doing the brown, and I just go around the pumpkin just to add dimension and just more character and cuteness to my pumpkins. Adding all of these extras to my projects really just kind of makes me happy, and it's what I do. Just like splattering my projects, and I am so grateful that so many sweet friends love this technique or love this look as well. So guys, this is what I do to splatter my projects. I have some paint and a stiff brush. A toothbrush would work as well, and I just have a stick, just a craft stick, and I just run the stick over the bristles of the stiff brush and like pull the stick toward my body so that the paint goes on the project. And I always make sure that I have a placemat or some kind of covering. This right here is just brown paper that I got at Hobby Lobby, and so that my table or my surface is covered. And so I splatter the black paint first, then I make sure that my brush is clean, that it doesn't have any black paint in it, and then I go back and I do the white paint. So then also I'm going to add some shading around the edge of my pumpkin, and I'm just doing that in black. And how I shade is I just take a 1/2 inch flat paintbrush. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water, and I blend on a paper towel. I go around my project and just add some shading to the edges of my project. Then to highlight and bring out the dots a bit more, I just have a round brush and I just go around each of the circles, just adding like a comma or just a swipe just to highlight the polka dots. Then to add more, because guys, y'all know I love to doodle and add squiggly lines and all of that good stuff, because I just really think the beauty is in the details of the projects, especially my painted projects. So I just have a very loved, very thin liner brush that I just go around and just add some squiggles or some doodles. Then I will add some black Sharpie marker, which is my best friend. I do consider my fine Sharpie marker my best friend. So to enhance my project a bit more, like I said, I do take a lot of time and do quite a few steps in my projects, but I do feel that this just adds so much more to my painted projects. So I just go around all of the circles as well as the edges and just add some black Sharpie marker for some doodling. I do that as well on these smaller pumpkins, just going around, just kind of hitting the high parts. I don't care if my lines are perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I just want them just to just add a bit of the black color just to give it some doodling and just bring it out. We have to make a cute rustic bow for these pumpkins, so I'm using this burlap from the Dollar Tree. Now for the larger pumpkin, I'm using the orange, and I'm just taking my scissors and just cutting it down a bit more so that I could handle it a little better. And so then I just use my glue gun and just my masking tool to help, because since the burlap has holes in it, I don't want to burn my fingers. So I use that masking tool that I picked up from the Dollar Tree in the makeup section. That works great. And so then I just wrap the stem of the pumpkin with this orange burlap. I just did the same thing with the medium-sized pumpkin, but I used the dark brown burlap from the Dollar Tree. I didn't show that on video, but that's what I did. So then now for the smaller pumpkin, I'm just using the natural color burlap, and I cut that burlap into 3 pieces so that I could work with it a bit better. And so here you can kind of see all 3 of the pumpkins. I used the darker brown on the medium, the orange on the large one, and the natural on the smaller pumpkin. We have to make a cute rustic bow for these pumpkins. So this is one I've already done. I'm going to share how I did it. I just used a bunch of different burlap and strips of muslin. I have some pit berries. I also have some trim. I am using one of the paper covered wires that I got on sale from Walmart a few years ago, but I have since found that they offer them over at Joann's in the crafts section, or the floral section over at Joann's craft store. So if you have one near you, maybe you can find some of these. Okay, so what I have here is I just have different, laces. I cut some burlap. I cut some trim. My trims I get from the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby or Walmart. And so I'm just kind of layering them up. The pit berries came from Hobby Lobby. And so I am just layering them on kind of like a swag, and to give it a bit of whimsiness, rustic whimsiness, if that's even, a word, I'm just using some sisal twine, and I just did 6 loops, 3 on each side, and I just made a separate bow with the sisal twine, and then that is going to be what's in the middle of my bow. I layer all of that on top, and I just secure everything with a pipe cleaner. I want to make sure that this bow is real secure on this pumpkin, and what I'm using is my crocodile, and I'm using the smaller hole, and I just punched a hole in the pumpkin, and then I threaded the rest of the pipe cleaner through the back, and then I secure it with some glue just to make sure that it's tied on as well as glued on my pumpkin. Okay, so this is how these two look. I just love all the rusticness, and so here I'm going to share another how I made the larger bow, because I do get lots of questions or lots of comments to say, how do you make your rustic bows? So this video is sharing how I made the same bow, but maybe you can pick up different tips from just watching it again. I have the wire, that the paper covered wire. I'm using all of the same things, the same trim, the same pit berries and everything. And so here I'm showing how I made the larger one. I just have the pit berries. I turn them, so that some pit berries would be coming out of both sides, and I'm just layering up everything. I have the muslin fabric. It's just fabric that I got at the craft store. I just cut or just tore off 1-inch strips, and then I just have strips of that same burlap that I used to cover the stems of the pumpkins, and just strips of that, and just doing an X pattern. I have all of these different lace trims that I got from either Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Dollar Tree, anywhere that you can get these thin laces, these lace trims from. And then I, am doing the same thing with my sisal twine. I just make a 6-loop bow, 3 loops on each side, and then I secure it with a piece of the little sisal twine so that everything is nice and secure, and that it doesn't come unlooped or together. And so then I just layer everything together and secure it with a pipe cleaner. To attach the pumpkins together, I'm using this Fabri-Tac glue as well as some hot glue just to attach everything together. And for the small little sign, I'm using one of the Happy Fall that came out of this pack from Hobby Lobby. It's already painted orange, which is perfect. And so I just attached that to the sign as well with some of that Fabri-Tac and some hot glue. The Fabri-Tac glue is the permanent hold, and the hot glue is the instant hold. And what I did is I do like to give my painted projects a sealer. I like a glossy finish, so I use this sealer. It is my favorite, and I just, brushed it over my projects just to give everything, so everything is nice and finished. Here's a quick overview of how I made the wreath. I have a 14-inch gold frame from Dollar Tree, as well as two 10-inch mesh, my rotary cutter, and some pipe cleaners. So what I do is I just roll these out together. I measure out 12 inches and then I just cut them all at the same time. Each wreath maker does theirs a little different, but this is just what works for me. And I am cutting 20 bundles of these two 10-inch mesh. And these 10-inch mesh came from Hobby Lobby. Now, to make my cruffles or my ruffles, I just take it and bend it over 2 times. I clamp it. Those little clamps came from the Dollar Tree. I gather it in the middle to make the ruffle. I clamp it. I do the other one the same way and just fold it over 2 times. I clamp it and then fold the other side. And then I'm going to stack them together. I make an X pattern and just, I like to get all of my ruffles, done. And then I use those clamps from the Dollar Tree that I get from the laundry section. They open very wide and it just helps me with my wreath making for these, little things like this. And so then I just take a pipe cleaner and then I just thread it on, and I usually start in the inner ring. I start in the inner ring and then I move to the outer ring, and I am going to put 20 of these bundles on this frame. Next layer, I am using this 10-inch mesh as well. I consider this specialty mesh. It doesn't quite have as much on the roll. But what I do is I just roll it out, and I'm measuring out 15 inches and cut those out. And that is what I'm going to attach on top of the layers just to give a bit of this orange and white color. I do this layer the same way, but I'm rolling it over 3 different times since this is a 15-inch mesh, the length of it. And so I just clamp those together, and I like to have the curls or the ruffles in this, with this specialty mesh. That's just what I call it. That's the color that it gives. And then I just sporadically, I'm going around and I'm just layering this on top of, the mesh that I already have there. And then I'm going to go around and include this in the entire wreath. So I put a total of 7 of these orange and white cruffles into the wreath. So depending on how much stuff you put on it, depends on how big or how full your wreath is. Okay, these are the ribbons that I'm using. The pumpkins and the brown and white polka dot came from Craft Outlet. The orange with the burlap check came from Hobby Lobby. I measured them out at 13 inches, and I dovetailed all of my ribbons. I almost always dovetail my ribbons. And so to make my bundles, I made 20 bundles, and I use my tiny attacher, my little stapler. You may hear me mention that in a lot of my projects or a lot of my wreath projects. It just helps with, it just makes my wreath making life a little bit easier. It just puts a tiny little staple in it. And I like to streamline, and I also like to multitask and, kind of like make things a little bit easier for me. Anyway, the tiny attacher is in my Amazon store, or you can buy it at any craft store in the scrapbooking section. I also added some pip berries that I get from Hobby Lobby from the fall section, as well as some raffia. I included that in the ribbon bundles. The raffia is from Walmart. Now, I know I don't show here, but I made 20 of the ribbon bundles, and I just attached them into each of the pipe cleaners. I do have other videos that I share, how I attach my ribbon and that kind of thing, if you would like to check it out. So then what I'm showing here is how I put the cable tie mounts on to my sign. I use a combination of E6000 as well as hot glue. They are sticky, but I don't trust that, so I want to give it extra security and protection. The cable tie mounts, you can use wire or pipe cleaners like I'm using here, and that can help with signs to attach to your wreath. And I just thread pipe cleaners on, and then I attach it to the wire frame so that my sign is secure. I cover the back of my wreaths with these placemats that I get from Hobby Lobby. It's just a personal preference, just to kind of cover up any of the back and just make everything